How's it going, everyone? My name is Hayden, and welcome to another episode of High Thoughts with Hayden. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about how I'm not a corporate libertarian, I'm an individual libertarian. And before I explain what those terms I just made up mean, I think I made them up, but I don't know for sure, we gotta put a little smoke in the air. I gotta stand up for this one to get this in shot. Okay. I have the day off, so I'm okay to do this. Cheers. Before we get too far into things, I wanted to mention that I'm smoking on a little bit of leftover tree from a sesh I had a little while ago with one of my friends, and we are going to be dabbing a little bit later on some Nug Gorilla Glue No. 4 Shatter. And I know you guys probably can't tell that that looks good, but it definitely looks good, and it's very good. So now, I don't specifically say that I'm a libertarian because of the fact that the idea of libertarianism, I feel, favors corporations, big companies, and doesn't favor the individual, doesn't favor the person that libertarianism is supposed to be for, the little guy, the individual, the citizen. Libertarianism is kind of the idea that you don't want the government to meddle in your lives, the lives of other people around you. You don't want them to put unnecessary regulations on companies. You don't want them to restrict certain things like weed, for example, things that don't harm a society. All these different things, as well as not pay taxes. That's a big one. They think that the taxation is theft. That's a big phrase in the libertarian community because it's kind of they think of it as, if I'm being taxed, it's the threat of, hey, pay this extortion or we're going to throw you in a cage. And I can understand that point a little bit, but I will get into my counterpoint to that in a little while. Now, the main idea behind libertarianism is the idea that you don't want the government to control or meddle parts of your life, the life of people around you, unnecessarily. You want to be able to live free, you want to be able to, not worry about encroaching government on your lives. And again, as you will soon find out, I kind of fall into that category. Where I fall off, on the other hand, is where when you start talking about how, number one, there should be no taxes, period. There should be no taxes and somehow the free market takes care of everything. I'm sorry, but if you've ever driven on some of the roads in California, the least maintained roads in, I would say, the country. I haven't been across the U.S., but I've been to a lot of the regions of the U.S., and I would say that we got some shit roads in California for just having sunny, nice weather all the time. And yet, for some reason, the free market isn't going out there and repaving them. Maybe you could argue because it's completely illegal to shut down traffic on your own and start repaving a highway, but I also don't see anyone volunteering to go and do it for free. Moreover, it kind of benefits corporations and larger businesses and disregards the little guy. It really hinders smaller business because it's allowing all of these bigger companies to basically run wild. It's the idea that monopolies could possibly form, which, we already have monopolies, but that's neither here nor there. It's the idea that these companies will have no oversight and be able to do with whatever they want with regards to pollution, emissions, how they make their products. Imagine if the FDA didn't exist. Imagine if there was no oversight with the safety of your drugs, your weed, whatever, all the products within your life, a lot of them go through a lot of safety standards. And if it's something that you ingest, there's a very good chance that a government organization had a hand in making sure that it was safe for you to utilize. So I think that taking away government oversight from business is a very dumb idea. And that's where I would say that the majority of libertarians, I would argue, are corporate libertarians. They're libertarians who, whether they know it, like it, or not, would be supporting these corporations and would be supporting these larger businesses rather than supporting their average American, rather than supporting their average citizen, because, you know, other countries or other places in the world can obviously be libertarian as well. Now, this is where my ideas come in. While I don't think that the individuals of the world should pay taxes, I think that the corporations should pay taxes. I think that they should pay higher taxes than they currently do, and I think that they should actually be paying the taxes that they're supposed to be paying. I have my little cheat sheet over here, which was apparently supposed to be my period 3 notebook at one point. I will link any applicable articles down below so that you will be able to see all my sources. Now, the U.S. tax rate for corporations and businesses is 35%. So 35% of their earnings is supposed to go to taxes. In 2016, companies paid $444 billion in the total $2.2 trillion in taxes, about 1/5. Now, the top 30 earners that made $80 billion or more paid on average 26.7%. That's a lot less. That's getting close to 10% less in taxes. Apple, for example, paid 25.8% on $58 billion. They paid $15.8 billion in taxes. Microsoft paid 16.5% on their $20.1 billion earnings. Now, that was foreign, but that was still their earnings. They actually had a loss in the U.S., but I feel like if you're going to base yourself in the U.S., you got to pay the U.S. tax rate if you make an earning. Sorry, not sorry. Alphabet, which is the parent company to Google, paid 19% on their $23 billion earnings, which was $4.7 billion in taxes. In 2016, GE earned $10 billion and got $400 million in tax earnings. So they got, their tax rate was negative 4.5%. Amazon last year made $11.2 billion, and as you might have heard, is going to be paying $0 in taxes. So their tax rate is 0%. So that alone, if you were to look at that and say, all right, corporations, you're not getting your tax breaks anymore. You're not going to be able to harbor all of your money overseas in offshore accounts. You're not going to be able to have all of these hidden bank accounts. You're not going to be able to screw over our tax system anymore. You need to start paying what you're supposed to be paying. If we were to do that, I feel like we would already be getting pretty close to being alright with not having to have the average American pay taxes. Now, that being said, we have by far the largest military. I don't need to get into statistics about that because, oh my god, our military is of an atrocious Andre the Giant compared to fucking mini-me size. We are massive, and I am 100% for cutting military spending. Holy shit, is there no oversight with military spending? There's tons of projects that get billions upon billions of dollars in funding and go nowhere. Now, just like pointing out that the military that we have is the largest, and our budget for the military is the largest, is pretty obvious, and I don't think I need to point that out. I also don't think I need to point out the fact that, holy crap, it's atrocious the lack of oversight that we have with our military. The reason we spend so much a lot of the times is because a lot of the stuff that gets signed and said, yeah, go ahead and start working on that, doesn't go anywhere. It's just money going to these companies because this congressperson's district has, you know, a Northrop Grumman factory in it, and therefore they need to pass this legislation that gives Northrop Grumman fucking $500 million to start working on a project. That goes nowhere. Because then it's just $500 million that goes to a company that's paying, you know, 5,000 of his constituents. Starting to get the picture? Now, if making the corporations and big businesses of America pay the taxes they're actually supposed to pay, or a little bit more, as well as cutting military spending, doesn't do enough to get our taxes to the point to where we don't need to have the American citizen pay taxes, tax the churches. I can guarantee you that organizations like the Catholic Church get billions, if not trillions of dollars in global funds each year. In the US, it's definitely in the millions, bare minimum, and they don't pay anything. Now, while I can't give you the earnings of any specific religious organization, I can give you some different stats on televangelists and famous preachers. Kenneth Copeland has a net worth of $760 million. Guarantee he doesn't pay taxes. His organization doesn't pay taxes. No money he makes does he have to tax because it comes from the church. He just last month got a new $6 million jet with church money that he didn't have to pay any taxes on. Again, because it's for church purposes. Pat Robertson, famous televangelist, has a net worth of $100 million. Joel Osteen only has a $40 million net worth, but lives in a $10.5 million house. So, a very modest and pious man, if I do say so myself. Creflo Dollar, yes, that's his actual name, has a net worth of $27 million. A couple years back, got a $65 million jet with church money. He lives in a 17,000 square foot house on 182.9 acres. He has 2 Rolls Royces, 3 houses total, and in 2007 made $69 million in revenue through his church. Again, none of this is taxed. Maybe his personal cars, and maybe he pays property tax, but beyond that, I'm not really thinking he's paying much. Now, I can specifically say that the Church of Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormons, we can guesstimate around how much they make because their flock, as we'll call them, their flock give about 10%, minimum of 10% of their earnings to the church each year. So that they have to pay an added 10% tax to the church, but the church doesn't have to pay any tax to the government. Does that make sense? Not at all. Because churches are looked at as positive influences to the community. They're looked at as charities, basically. But in a free society, in a libertarian society where everyone's able to believe, say, and think what they want, I don't necessarily know that I want the church to be the only homeless shelter. I don't know if I want the church to be the only soup kitchen in town, because that would be forcing these homeless people to go to a church and force the homeless people to hear religious doctrine whether they like it or not. And I don't think that in a libertarian society or in a free society, that's how things should be run. Now, the Church of Latter-day Saints, at 10% of the income of their each individual family of the church, we're looking at a total of $8 billion in tithings a year. $8 billion a year. They don't pay a cent in taxes. Again, how can we say that this is fair? How can we say that have the little guy pay taxes, but don't tax the corporations anymore because they'll leave and go overseas? Fine, buy, let them. Isn't the free market supposed to take over? Isn't the free market supposed to handle itself and be able to help everyone? Because wouldn't that just promote competition? And I think that Apple making all their home bases and Microsoft making all their home bases here, be really hard for them to move that shit overseas, whether they like it or not. What do I know? I'm just high, having some thoughts. If you like it, subscribe. Cheers.